Well, it's time for the Footy Exchange on the Footy Interchange. This is where we address your questions each and every week. And it's great to have your feedback. It's great to have so many people watching along and getting interactive on the podcast as well. So you can either drop a question in the YouTube comments and I'll get to it next week as well for you as well, or just hit up myself or Will Schofield on X before 11 a.m. Western Standard Time on a Tuesday, or 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday, and we'll endeavour to include it in the question time pod for you. Eliza Reilly is still with me this week though, because Scully's out with those vocal cord injuries that he's claiming from a big weekend at Gather Round. So Eliza's going to help me with the comments today on the Footy Exchange. Let's kick it off with John, who says, why didn't the Eagles move the Magnets? They selected a side that has no plan B. Harley to the midfield, Graham to halfback, Archer Reid into the ruck, Bailey Williams forward, Ryan into the middle, Dewar to halfback, Duggan up forward, Allen centre half forward, Waterman deep, Hoff onto a wing, says John, who sums it up pretty well.
John, I'm trying to imagine all the that's a lot of movement for Andrew McQualter to make, but yes, he has a fair point. You know, you want to back your selected team in from the outset in the way they're lining up and the way you've put them on the board, but you do need to have levers you can pull. I'm not sure you'd be pulling all of those at once, but the two...
Some of them maybe.
Yeah, some of them. I reckon Ryan into the midfield, he's showing so much intent and sort of those second, third efforts, and his field kicking's elite. If you can access that and get him charging out the front of a stoppage, he could be the one to find a target inside 50 and actually help the Eagles get a score on the board and build that confidence. And Dewar to half-back as well, that's something they definitely trialled during the pre-season. He trained a fair bit there and they really want to make a spot for him in this team and make sure he stays in this side for the rest of the year. So it's definitely a few there that I reckon could be worth pursuing a bit further.
There's obviously quite a few West Coast questions coming through after
the
weekend, so we'll address a few of them. We want to hear from all footy fans though, if you want us to talk about something else that's not one of the WA clubs, and we do have a few of those coming through. Sydney H says, not a question, just wanted to acknowledge Brady Hoff. Tough scenes straight after the game. Cheers, says Sydney. Just referencing the fact that he was quite emotional after the game. I've heard Jack Waterman speak very passionately on 6PR in the last 24, 48 hours. Jack Graham as well. Part of the frustration, I think, from fans is like when they see some of the efforts where things don't happen as they should, they think, the players don't care. The players don't. I don't think that's true. I think the players sometimes don't know how to fix what's going on out there, but they definitely care.
Oh, absolutely, and that just tells you exactly that. Brady Hoff, obviously an Eagles fan growing up, has supported this club since he was a young kid and is living out his dream, but it's a dream that's not going to plan, is it? He'd love to experience more wins and taste the success that you think he deserves, because he's been such a grind away, lockdown defender, top 10 of the BNF last year, and looks destined for big things.
Music Cats King has a question for Will Schofield, so I'll handball that to next week, but just basically asking how would you play on Patrick Dangerfield when he's forward. I'd be heading straight to the bench if that was me and just getting out of there. Brad says, holding the ball would be easier if you receive from a teammate and are tackled. It's holding the ball, so like a team holding the ball rule, so that's your prior. If it was a ground ball that you get, then you open up prior opportunity, or free the ball the same would, so it spreads the ball a little bit wider and not tie it up with ball up. So what do you think about that one? A team holding the ball. Once you have possession, if you receive clean possession and get tackled, then that's holding the ball straight away.
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a contentious one, hasn't it? And I think it was Luke Beveridge a couple of weeks ago who just said there is no clarity on this rule and everyone is so confused about how it's actually supposed to be adjudicated. So I'm open to any ways to sort of try and get a bit more clear on how this rule does function, because it seems like there is a massive variation at the moment.
I think the one that would just make it so much easier for fans and make people feel a lot better about it is, even if you try to get rid of it, even if you've had no prior, but you do not kick or handball it, then that's holding the ball. Like incorrect disposal, you're done. And if you don't try to get it out, then that's holding the ball as well, if that's the way they want to roll it, because they want to keep the game moving. But it's ones where like, he made an attempt and didn't realistically actually make an attempt.
It's the old swinging arm, isn't it?
Yeah, or just drop the footy and sort of throw a boot at it.
Yeah.
And you don't make any connection. Like I think that needs to be penalised. That would make it a lot clearer for me. Lure PJB says on X, even Eagles fans constantly criticise Jamie Cripps. This one might have been on YouTube actually. Says there's plenty of people on Big Footy doing that. But says Jamie Cripps has been absolutely sensational and consistent player for West Coast for over a decade now in an unforgiving role.
Yeah, he was my underrated player that we sort of spoke about on last week's episode as someone at every club who's flying under the radar and perhaps hasn't got the plaudits they deserve. And that's been, I think, the case for Jamie Cripps' entire career. And I mean, he is sort of in that position this year where we thought that the influx of small forwards like Matt Always and Tyler Brockman showing some good form in the pre-season, that Cripps might get overtaken in the pecking order, but just his gut running and his finishing has made sure he's stayed in the team and he's continuing to perform in the team. So I don't see where the criticism comes from. Maybe it's you look at his stats and he's not getting 20 touches a game, but that's not his role. His role is to work up, be an option, work back, kick goals.
And his finishing has been extraordinary, particularly from the pockets from about 45 out. It's been very, very good.
Yeah, he likes the hard ones, doesn't he?
He does. West Coast 2025 on YouTube says, first podcast back. It says, honestly, there's a bit of dread about what's going to be said about West Coast. It's not that we're completely hopeless, but the balance just isn't right. Too many senior blokes holding spots, and it's hard not to feel like I've lost a bit of hope. Just want to see us win a couple, not even for the ladder, just to believe again. It's time to start bleeding the kids. There's genuine talent there. It's just about giving them the games, the experience. That's how we start building something real again. Yeah,
obviously, I think there is senior blokes in the firing line now, and Mick Walter made that pretty clear with his sort of decision to drop Tim Kelly last week, who went back to the waffle, had the 20-odd touches, but I don't think watching that game has done enough to earn a recall. And if that's going to be the decision he made last week, it has to be the decision West Coast make every week going forward. And it doesn't matter who your name is. If you're out of form, you're losing your spot in that side. And one of the kids who I think upstaged Tim Kelly was Luca Grego, who's obviously a draftee from last year, and he played in a midfield role, sort of had 23 touches, heaps of inside 50s, really classy, composed and physical. So he's someone I think should be in contention for a debut this week, and we'll see where that leaves the senior players on that team.
Could you see Joe Shanahan getting a gig?
3 goals. He was very competitive in a forward 50 that didn't really get a whole stack of opportunities, especially in the first half. But he's someone who's continuing to build, and he can also play in the back line as well. But given that he is having an impact up forward, you'd probably rather see him be blooded there.
Really passionate one here coming in from Danielle says, West Coast needs to get some heart and tough love. Sick of the pussyfooting and sensitivity. I'm a sensitive chick, so I'm aware of the getting better and hard things going on personally, says Danielle. But I can say that some of these boys, and especially the coaches' management, are taking the piss. It's footy. If you play shite, have another player who actually cares, have a go. One hope I have is with Baker. He shows heart and passion, seems to be a genuine salt-of-the-earth guy and doesn't care for the nonsense. The seniors, in brackets, who aren't flopping all over the shop, need to step up, which I'm hoping Ryan, Gov and Cripps can do. Hold people accountable if they need to improve. Where is the fire? The new young guys I'm super excited for, and there seems to be some great talent, but they need guidance and discipline so the team can actually become a powerhouse again. They're influenced by the seniors' efforts and attitude, and it's time these older guys stop thinking losing has its positives and having this, yeah, we improved, that's a win vibe. Enough of this shit show, says Danielle, who is very passionate on that one. If I had a prize to give away, I've got to work on that with Scully, maybe. That might be going Danielle's way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of feedback coming from the West Coast fan base, and it's fair enough. They're sick and tired of these results, and they're sick and tired, I'd suggest, of rocking up to Optus Stadium to watch their team play and probably knowing in the back of their mind it's going to be a loss. That's not a good position for teams to be in, and fans want hope. They want to see improvement. They want to see the little wins to make them sort of, see the light at the end of the tunnel. And she's whacked the senior players there fairly comprehensively, and they are the ones who are going to be educating these young kids and helping them go to the next level.
Shroot Savages continues the Eagles theme, says, thoughts on the Eagles' best midfield mix to be competitive but develop youth?
Yeah, it's a real interesting one, and we've seen a few very different names go through there in the past few weeks, and what their midfield looked like at the start of the year is very different to what their midfield looks like now. But someone like Jack Graham we thought was going to be a big part of it, and he sort of played more half forward on the weekend and was sort of tagging Sard, whereas his big body and sort of physical presence was such a big factor in the pre-season, and we thought, oh, there's one midfield spot locked in. We thought Harley Reid was locked in as a midfield spot. He's obviously building back to fitness, and Tim Kelly's been dropped. So it is a really interesting one. I still think they need that sort of experienced person in there to help the Tom Grosses sort of come along in their game. But yeah, it's very interesting sort of CBA counts we're seeing.
Especially not having Harley Reid in there as much in the last couple of weeks, playing a bit more of that half-back role. I think that'll help their competitive numbers, or their contested ball numbers, surely, just having him in there. The other one to that, I think, is Matt Flynn, who was strong in the ruck again, 2 strong waffle performances. We could maybe see him come back into the side. He was obviously disappointing in the first round against Jared Witts, but not the first player or the last to be dominated by Jared Witts in a game of footy. But if they can get him up and going, I think a big-bodied ruckman who can just throw their weight around in there would help a younger midfield.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, like you said, he's been in really strong form and was probably one of the more dominant players on the ground against Subiaco. So there's definitely thought to that, and that could even open something up where you send Bailey Williams forward and they go back to that sort of 2 ruck structure and try and exploit Essendon, who we know might just be rolling with Sam Draper this weekend.
Reading the Game says West Coast are criticised when they don't trade their assets, and then when they do, they're criticised again. How can they balance the need for high-end draft talent while still maintaining leadership? The club seems hopeless and stuck because of the former admin's lack of action. And this is the big debate that's been there is, okay, where is rock bottom? Yep. Have they hit that yet? Yep. And the direction, it feels like this rebuild has been a slow process without pulling the trigger and just completely pulling the rug out, like Richmond have done, like Hawthorn did a few years ago, to try to fast-track getting back up the ladder. And
that's going to be such an interesting watch in the next few years, that battle between Richmond and West Coast, and who's going to get back to the top quicker, and what method is perhaps going to prevail for future teams who find themselves in this position. Obviously, we know that the Eagles took a while to admit that they were in a rebuild phase, but at the same time, they had to bring guys like Liam Baker, Jack Graham always in to be that sort of bridge between the younger guys and the veterans, because the long game is you're trying to keep Harley Reid, you're trying to keep young blokes from requesting trades, because they need to see progress, they need to see improvement for them to sign on the dotted line.
Dave from the Cave says, who backs up Sean Darcy in the ruck for Freo this weekend? Is it worth playing a backup like Draper or Cox's ruck, or go man-on-man in the ruck contest? This is an interesting call, obviously with Voss out with suspension pending the tribunal, with, of course, Luke Jackson injured at the moment.
Yep.
Do they bring Liam Reedy in and play the 2 rucks like they have before? I don't think you want Josh Tracy rucking given the form he's in.
Yeah, I personally think they'd be going too top-heavy if they brought Liam Reedy into the side, and obviously he's been someone who's looked absolutely dominant at waffle level but hasn't quite been able to replicate that form once he's gone up to the AFL. The risk you run is that Sean Darcy's still not back at full fitness. He played, I think, 60-something% game time on the weekend against the Tigers, and he's going to need to gradually build that over the next few weeks, but I personally would prefer to see someone like a Draper or a Cox back him up around the ground with, Darcy, you're starting ruck and getting a fair bit of a chop out from those other guys, because I don't think Liam Reedy is probably going to be the answer. He can't play that sort of forward role as well as Luke Jackson can.
Anyone else other than Josh Tracy? I don't like seeing him in the ruck, given how well he's been playing and the impact he's been having forward as well. And last one from Wayne Perry says, you missed one of the biggest factors in why Adelaide hosting Gather Round is so great. This year, 65,000 Victorians have bought tickets, with a lot driving over. That just doesn't happen anywhere near that level if Gather Round was in Perth. Eliza, I know you wrote an article late last week about WA wanting to try to pinch it. What's your feel on Gather Round going forward?
I think that WA would, at the end of the day, love it, for the tourism benefits, the traffic benefits and all that. But I completely agree that you won't probably get that same level of people driving across. I mean, you can do it. It's not out of the realms of possibility. It might just take you a little bit longer. It might just take you a little bit longer to get there. So I would love to see it in Perth. Whether I think we will, probably not. I think South Australia has shown just how well they can put this show on and make it happen for their state. So maybe we can get something else as a...
I think WA for State of Origin would be good.
Yeah.
And make that a thing over here, given WA invented State of Origin back in the day, even though other people think that's stronger in other places. But State of Origin in WA, whether it's in the pre-season weekend or whatever, it'd be a big boost. And South Australia have done such a good job that I think absolutely they should keep it the way that it's been going right now. If it was to move elsewhere... And even with the fact it's in South Australia now, I'd love to see the AFL try and do a deal with the airlines to keep the prices actually reasonable for people. Like I know just coming from Perth, it was getting up to like $1,800 return for people to go to South Australia for a weekend. Like it's just, that's ridiculous. And we see it happen with the grand final each and every year. But can we not just get organised and get some extra planes and figure it out so that if people want to go, they have the opportunity to go and be a part of it and make it as big as we possibly can. The AFL have got partners with airlines.
Yeah,
let's
Virgin's
make
a major
it happen.
sponsor.
Whether it's an increased price, but try and cap it at a certain limit, and try and make it work. I think it's just footy fans get taken for a rort way too many times. Whether it be an Easter weekend going up to Queensland, whether it be grand final or Anzac Day or something like that. Surely there's a world where we can get on the same page and we can make it at least semi-affordable for fans to be able to travel to watch games.
If I can get to London for the same price as going to Adelaide for Gather Round, something is severely wrong with the system.
Exactly. Andrew Dillon, please make this happen. Let's figure out a cap price or something and just get more planes going over there if we're going to have Gather Round, wherever it's going to be, or for any AFL travel.
They got the A380, the big bus for a Taylor Swift concert.
Well,
what are we doing for Gather Round? Let's get
the Gather Round plane going and get it going. Eliza, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paps.
Question time here. The Footy Exchange on the Footy Interchange.